N400, 60 Most Asked Vocabulary Definitions. We explain each word in a simple and clear way to help you easily memorize. Let's get started with the first word. What does work of national importance mean? What does work of national importance mean? Tasks that are important to a nation. Tasks that are important to a nation. What is the meaning of a hereditary title? What is the meaning of a hereditary title? A royal title like prince or princess. A royal title like prince or princess. What does it mean to register? What does it mean to register? To sign up. To sign up. What is the meaning of overdue? What is the meaning of overdue? Past a deadline. Past a deadline. How would you explain the meaning of cited? How would you explain the meaning of cited? Given a ticket by police. Given a ticket by police. What is the meaning of genocide? What is the meaning of genocide? To kill a whole race. To kill a whole race. Can you define the oath of allegiance? Can you define the oath of allegiance? A promise to be loyal to the United States. A promise to be loyal to the United States. What does pay alimony mean? What does pay alimony mean? To pay money to ex-spouse after a divorce. To pay money to ex-spouse after a divorce. Do you understand what fraudulent means? Do you understand what fraudulent means? To claim something that is not true. To claim something that is not true. Do you know what the form of government of the United States means? Do you know what the form of government of the United States means? Republic. Republic. How would you explain what O means? How would you explain what O means? To have a debt. To have a debt. Do you understand what the Communist Party means? Do you understand what the Communist Party means? Like China, North Korea. Like China, North Korea. How would you explain what smuggle means? How would you explain what smuggle means? To take things to a country illegally. to take things to a country illegally. Do you know what weapons training means? Do you know what weapons training means? To learn how to use a gun. To learn how to use a gun. Do you understand what illegal drugs or narcotics are? Do you understand what illegal drugs or narcotics are? Like heroin or cocaine. Like heroin or cocaine. Can you define non-resident alien? Can you define non-resident alien? A person who has not passed the green card test. A person who has not passed the green card test. What is the meaning of procure? What is the meaning of procure? To find someone for sex. To find someone for sex. Do you know what claim means? Do you know what claim means? To say something is true. To say something is true. How would you explain what immigration benefit is? How would you explain what immigration benefit is? Things like a visa, green card, or citizenship. Things like a visa, green card, or citizenship. How would you explain the meaning of civilian direction? How would you explain the meaning of civilian direction? A direction from a person who is not in the military. A direction from a person who is not in the military. Do you know what overthrow means? Do you know what overthrow means? To remove a government from power. To remove a government from power. Do you know what crime means? Do you know what crime means? An action that breaks the law. An action that breaks the law. How would you explain the meaning of incite? How would you explain the meaning of incite? To encourage. To encourage. What does lie mean? What does lie mean? To say something that is not true. To say something that is not true. Can you define the order of nobility? Can you define the order of nobility? Like king or queen. Like king or queen. What does military unit mean? What does military unit mean? A group that works for government. A group that works for government. Do you know what a detention facility means? Do you know what a detention facility means? A place where people are forced to stay. A place where people are forced to stay. How would you explain what it means to commit a crime? How would you explain what it means to commit a crime? To do something that breaks the law. To do something that breaks the law. How would you explain what non-combatant services are? How would you explain what non-combatant services are? Services that do not involve combat. Services that do not involve combat. How would you explain the meaning of file a tax return? How would you explain the meaning of file a tax return? To send tax paperwork to the government. To send tax paperwork to the government. What is the meaning of detained? What is the meaning of detained? Held in custody by police. Held in custody by police. How would you explain what charged means? How would you explain what charged means? Police tell you that you did something illegal. Police tell you that you did something illegal. What is the meaning of an offense? What is the meaning of an offense? A minor crime. A minor crime. How would you explain the meaning of vote? How would you explain the meaning of vote? To elect new leaders. To elect new leaders. Do you know what a public benefit means? Do you know what a public benefit means? Welfare, like food stamps. Welfare, like food stamps. How would you explain what deport means? How would you explain what deport means? To force a person to leave a country. To force a person to leave a country. Do you understand what national origin means? Do you understand what national origin means? Where a person is from. Where a person is from. What does drafted mean? What does drafted mean? Being selected as a soldier. Being selected as a soldier. Do you know what it means to bear arms? Do you know what it means to bear arms? To own or use a gun. To own or use a gun. Do you know what owe taxes means? Do you know what owe taxes means? To owe the government money. To owe the government money. Do you know what prostitute means? Do you know what prostitute means? Someone who has sex for money. Someone who has sex for money. Can you define controlled substances? Can you define controlled substances? You can buy it with a prescription but with restrictions. You can buy it with a prescription but with restrictions. What does a totalitarian party mean? What does a totalitarian party mean? Government controls everything and people have no power. Government controls everything and people have no power. What is the meaning of deportation proceedings? What is the meaning of deportation proceedings? Process of removing a person. Process of removing a person. Do you know what claim to be a U.S. citizen means? Do you know what claim to be a U.S. citizen means? To state you are a U.S. citizen. To state you are a U.S. citizen. What is the meaning of civilian? What is the meaning of civilian? A person who is not in the military. A person who is not in the military. How would you explain what prison or jail is? How would you explain what prison or jail is? A place where prisoners are kept. A place where prisoners are kept. Can you define military-type training? Can you define military-type training? Learning to fight in combat. Learning to fight in combat. What does confined mean? What does confined mean? To be kept in a place. To be kept in a place. How would you explain the meaning of false? How would you explain the meaning of false? Not true. Not true. What is the meaning of gamble? What is the meaning of gamble? To play a game for money. To play a game for money. What does torture mean? What does torture mean? To hurt someone physically. To hurt someone physically. Do you understand what dependent means? Do you understand what dependent means? Someone who relies on another person. Someone who relies on another person. Do you understand what a paramilitary unit is? Do you understand what a paramilitary unit is? Like a military group but is not official. Like a military group but is not official. What does a weapon mean? What does a weapon mean? Like a knife or gun. Like a knife or gun. Can you define arrested? Can you define arrested? Handcuffed by the police. Handcuffed by the police. Do you know what drug paraphernalia means? Do you know what drug paraphernalia means? Equipment to make illegal drugs. Equipment to make illegal drugs. What does misrepresentation mean? What does misrepresentation mean? To lie or give wrong information. To lie or give wrong information. How would you explain what the Constitution is? How would you explain what the Constitution is? It is the supreme law of the land. It is the supreme law of the land. What does misleading mean? What does misleading mean? Giving the wrong idea. Giving the wrong idea.